Are we live? Yep, we're live. Little new background here, folks. Billy Colburn here. It's Thursday, January 22nd, 4:12 p.m. Change a little bit of the decor behind me. Apologize for it's either fire or snow, fire and ice. I guess that's going to be a little bit what the next 72 hours are. We're going to have a little fire tonight, maybe. I understand it's going to be a very short fire at the Board of Supervisors meeting, 6:30 p.m. I understand some citizens are going to be coming with signs. I've seen people on Facebook say that's not necessary. The meeting's at 6:30 p.m. No public comment will be allowed. The public is invited. They're welcomed. It's in the basement of the health department, also known as the EOC. How ironic is that, ladies and gentlemen? EOC. 5 years ago, we didn't have one. The Emergency Operations Center. 5 years ago, we did not have an emergency services coordinator. 5 years ago, we were on the verge of a catastrophic ice storm, and 5 years later, it's not looking good, folks. And one thing that can make this different and worse than 2021, if you remember 2021, we had ice on Saturday, a little bit of ice on a little bit more on Sunday. Trees are falling, whatever, but restoration efforts could begin safely on Sunday. The event was over, and temperatures, while they were not balmy, they were warm. People weren't worried about freezing to death in their homes. This is different. This is another weekend storm, just like 2021, but incredibly colder temperatures after the fact. Daytime highs in the high teens, low 20s for several days next week. So if we have, and also 2021, we did not have roads covered in ice. So we may have roads covered in ice, catastrophic damage or heavy ice damage, however you want to phrase it, prolonged outages, and then life-threatening cold. That's what's different about this one. I just got off the phone moments ago, Town Manager Philip Vanderbeck. I reached out to both Philip and Town Mayor Lafayette Dickens, and Philip told me basically the town crews are basically gearing up. They're fueling up all the generators at the vital town facilities, and there's some things to remember here now for this ice storm. Remember, we've been through this before, so I know there's going to be a lot of angst, a lot of hey, Courier-Record, when we get our power back on, all that. The town, and I'm not speaking for Southside Electric or Dominion, I've not spoken to them, but I imagine it's the same. Philip just told me, Philip Vanderbeck, the town manager, the crews are not going to go out and begin restoration until the weather event's over. There are two reasons for that. First of all, they've got to work in safe conditions, okay? You cannot expect them to go out with it's still freezing rain and limbs crackling all around them. That's not going to happen. Secondly, that while they're clearing trees, more trees could fall in the same line. It's a waste of effort. So restoration efforts will not begin until after the event. Now, here's something else to consider, and I don't like to be gloom and doom. I'm hoping this is not near as severe, or I hope we don't get any ice at all, like we did in 2021. In 2021, after the ice event and there was damage, trees, I mean, basically, all the ice on trees melted over the next day or so because temperatures got above freezing during the daytime. Here, if we have a half inch of ice, we had about 3/4 to 1 inch of ice in some places in 2021. If we get between a quarter to half inch of ice, the longer that smaller amount of ice is on a tree, it's the equivalent of a 1 inch ice storm. Because the tree that's like, oh man, that tree looks really bad on Saturday. Oh, by the way, there's no melting. Come Tuesday, that tree may be all over your house, your car, or the power lines. So every storm is different. The response policy is the same. Also, keep in mind this: the town crews, and I think this is probably true for all power companies, are going to go where they can accomplish the biggest bang for the buck quicker. So first priorities would be when they can, when they can remove a tree off a line that goes, oh wow, this will restore power to 50 some homes. They're going to do that versus, oh, Miss Smith over there's a line across her yard. All she needs is one tree off and she can have power. That only helps one person. So they're going to prioritize on which lines can be repaired first. And in doing so, will bring power to more customers, more residents. If there's one bright, you try to look for the positive here. Now, kids, you're excited because I predict right now you're not going to school all next week. But if there is a positive, and this is going to sound kind of rough, but it's just a positive, for Blackstone folks, and we know we have the high light bills at times. When you're not burning kilowatt hours, you're not, when you don't have power, you're saving that light bill. I mean, that's a deep stretch to see the positive. But Philip says he told me that he fears it could be a repeat of 2021. Uh, some forecasts he has seen indicate it may not be as bad. But again, let's go. Just want to hammer home this point. If you look at the picture I've posted of the ice in front of the post office back from 2021, there's easily a half to three-quarters of an inch of ice on those trees. Okay. And those trees were all busted over, fallen over. Take half that ice, but take prolonged temperatures, 50% colder temperatures for 4 or 5 days, you can have the same damage. Like I said, that tree eventually, that pine limb eventually, that pine tree, that old oak eventually gives in and it's boom across the line. And even when it's quote unquote safe, as Philip said, when the weather event's over, doesn't mean that the guys and gals with hard hats and bucket trucks are out of danger because things can still be falling around them. And remember, a lot of these folks that they're inevitably going to be complaints about restoration time. You got to remember, a lot of the folks are leaving their homes where they have no power. They're leaving their spouses and, in some cases, young children to go out and restore your power, our power. So try to keep that in mind, okay? And trust me, no one wants power back on than a power company or the town of Blackstone, whatever, because like I said, it's a storm is a tremendous cost on utilities. It's customers inconvenience and not using the product that they sell. So again, we've all had we still got really 2 days, probably 48 hours from now is when I think it's going to be kicking in. Plenty of time to prepare. I have heard that some places that sell propane are out, have been out for a while. I've heard people calling various companies as early as Tuesday of this week, and no guarantee they're going to get propane or what they need before the storm. I myself, I don't mind saying, we have two propane fireplaces. Our tank is below 50%. During the ice storm of 2021, that's how we got by in the evenings before we went to sleep. Um, I was talked to a sweet lady with the company I called, and she was nice she could be. She said, "There's no guarantee, sir. There's no guarantee." So that's the latest. Just watch the forecast. I mean, the bottom line is, man, it's a coin toss. They're looking at the line, the pink and the blue and the white. We One thing I feel certain is it's definitely going to be, really, really cold for a prolonged period of time. And if we have outages with that, there's a real serious thing about checking on your neighbors and family members who are old, getting along in years. People live by themselves. People that they're people that live in our community that don't have family nearby. You know, a lot of us grew up here. We've got a relative or cousin or someone that's got a generator. Not everybody's in that same boat. So, going on Facebook is going to be, a lot of people will be venting if this is catastrophic or who's got power, when's my power coming back on. I've already got people messaging me, Billy, is this going to be as bad as 2021? I do not know. I do know if we get about a quarter inch of ice or half inch of ice and the temperature forecasts are correct, it's going to be as bad or worse than 2021 with the added bonus, quote unquote, and I say that in negative quotes, of loss of life or hypothermia being more serious because it's one thing to be out of power. I know my father, he was out of power for 4 or 5 days. His house got as cold, about 44 degrees. If we have, single digits, people are going to be, hypothermia is a real concern. So every storm is different, as I said, but I did have a very productive, informative call with the town manager. And again, I think there's some meetings next week that could be delayed. Town council meets Monday. There's already talk about, wiping that off, postponing some work sessions next week. We'll see what happens. But tonight, the only, I'm gonna give you some inside intel. It's a hunch. Also, it's something I said. I think I said on one of my Facebook lives. My prediction is for the board of supervisors to call a special meeting and for it to be set from 6:30 to 7 with no public comment. I tend to think that one or both sides involved in the lease of the bowling alley have said, what did Roberto Duran say after Leon Spink's fight? No mas, no mas, seventh round, no mas, meaning I'm done. I think that's what's going on here. It will be interesting if there's any intrigue. What will citizens that are coming, that say they're coming, will they be bringing signs? What will those signs say? Will those signs compel supervisors to let them speak? Will supervisors say anything about the answers they gave, the identical answers nearly to the question posed by citizen Chris Page? Who knew in advance? Did you know in advance? And one supervisor shook their head no, and the other said, no, not in advance, not in advance, not in advance. Chairman Bill Collins was not there. He did not answer. He was not asked because he wasn't physically present. And County Administrator Steve Bowen did not answer the question because he was not asked. Chris Page asked the supervisors who were present. So again, we've kind of beat this to a pulp. This is probably run its life cycle, news cycle, but there's still a question about it. At whatever happens tonight, what happens to the bowling alley? Well, newsflash, someone has a proposal to let the bowling alley be run by students, supervised students, as part of additional education for Nottaway County Public School students, something along the lines of Kids Biz, and this could also count toward the County of Nottaway's required local match. I don't know how you put a price tag on that, but the supervisors are looking at another record required minimum contribution to the school system. This could count as their match. There could be funds available. I don't know. I think there's a lot of bowling alley fatigue out there, not just on this issue per se since last Thursday, but just in general. I mean, since COVID, really, since the call ran through the side of the building, the American Stud Strip Show, it's just sort of been you heard Jed earlier. If you listen to Jed, my guest on our Big Orange Chair interview, even Jed said the county should get out of that. And Jed has been advocating for the county to keep LRA property, a lot of it, and to manage it properly. He even said they don't need to be in the landlord building, owning a building where a business is being run. And if anything unsavory happens, it's a bad reflection on that business. But anyway, appreciate you tuning in. Got to be careful out there, folks. This is a time now. We can watch weather. We can watch the weather and talk about it and wait till Saturday morning to hit Food Lion, Walmart, or whatever. That's not going to be good enough. You got to act now, have a plan, and see what happens. But I thank y'all for tuning in. We will have some YouTube. We will do some video footage tonight, the board meeting. We're not going to go live. We don't know about the Wi-Fi there. We're going to give you some angles that other folks will not be able to give you. Might do some interviews pre-recorded. When we pre-record, and you can ask Jed this, we don't edit. We don't splice and dice to make someone look bad or to make someone look comical or to make someone look good. If we pre-record an interview, the whole thing's going to air. Okay. That means if I get to going, stuttering, whatever, it's going to be all aired. Okay. That's how we are going to maintain to be a credible news organization, not one that plays favorites or tries to make so-and-so look good or so-and-so look bad. It's 4:24. I'm signing off. Be safe, be grateful, be happy, be the best you can be, and be careful. Patience, preparedness. Do it. That's some